I've had really tremendous feedback on the last one we had, so I thought, fuck it, man, let's just continue the chat.
That's fucking crazy. Thank you for telling me that. Yeah, it's exactly as you said. I see the numbers, and that's always, when it goes up, it's really exciting. But it doesn't register the same as when you meet people in person and they tell you that they actually enjoy your videos or that it helped them or they learn new bands from it. That always is just mind blowing to me. So yeah, that's fucking cool.
It's awesome, man. I saw that you mentioned the experiencing exactly the same thing. Was it Milwaukee Metal Fest you went to recently?
Yeah, I went to the Milwaukee Metal Fest run by Jamie Josta of Hatebreed now. It's my third time going there since he's taken it over. And it was that same experience where actually, when I walked into the pre party the night before, one of the very first people I saw there was wearing my band shirt. And I was like, what the fuck? That's something that I'm not used to at all. So, it's always a trip for me. I have some people will come up and ask to take like selfies or whatever. And I feel like they have a shock of seeing a YouTuber they watch, and I have a shock of like someone watches me. So it's just fucking we're both being like, holy shit at the same time, kind of. But
Mm.
it's been really, really cool and surprising. I kind of, maybe in a bad way, sometimes don't register like how, I guess, widely circulated my videos can be. So sometimes I might say some off the wall shit and then be like, oh, I didn't think like a million people would watch that. But I never regret it. It's always just like, oh damn,
Like the
feels different when
Coachella
you're.
video.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
insane, which got mostly positive views. But yeah, I'm sure you've probably had that similar type of thing. You're probably chatting with a guest, and then people bring up that conversation to you later on. And you're like, damn, kind of don't put it in perspective.
100%, man. Look, it's a funny one. So I think to a lot of people who perhaps watch our channels, one thing that they gotta perhaps keep in mind is that from our perspective, when you're running and operating a channel online, the most thing that you will see is numbers.
Yeah.
And a lot of the comments, to be honest with you, I feel like I've kind of been I've kind of been lucky in that regards because it's a very niche subject to a niche underground group, and it's like 99% words of support, like really, really good words, where it like clicks with people. But sometimes you see those stupid comments and people just saying shit, which is usually people who are bored, like to
Oh
them,
yeah.
like you can never trust someone who is like happy to write a paragraph just chatting shit for the sake of it on the internet. Like clearly that's someone who's bored. But it's easy to see stuff like that and then think that, okay, I wonder if most people are like this. But whereas when you're actually at a festival or at an event or like a gig and you bump into people, and generally they are the nicest of people, man, and you have like
Oh
some of the
yeah.
best conversations because of it.
Absolutely. I do that same thing where I notice my brain will kind of fixate on the hater comments, even though I think they're funny and I like to kind of fuck with them back.
I've
Your
seen
brain
that.
does kind of automatically get to that, think that like, do most people view it this way or act this way? But I've never had a shitty interaction with someone in person. It's always been overwhelmingly supportive and like really cool compliments from people. So yeah, it's weird how our brains will just hyper focus. I've realized plenty of times I'll get a ton of positive comments and then one retard will pop up and I'll be like, that motherfucker.
Let's count
It's
one of retard on this podcast, by the way. Let's see. I just made it two. Let's see how many more we can get in.
add more into the tip jar every time I get.
That's it. Yeah,
But which is funny. Some people think that's my like favorite word because I happen to say it. I'm like, I'd say it less than I say other words. I'm just not afraid to say it, and everyone else seems to be. So when I
yeah.
say it, it like pops out, I guess. But
I don't know. I
uh,
think I think it's kind of it's made a bit of a comeback, to be honest with you, in like the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, and I think
it
look, it's appropriate. Yeah, in a lot of cases, it is, and obviously, it's some of these comments really do call for it when you do read through them as well. So
when they're completely either misspelled or I love when they're really, really like sure themselves when they're like very clearly wrong about something. And they're just
yeah.
it's someone like ranting over and over again. I'm like, did you even Google this before you went off?
Bro, I
But
had one just recently. It's not on my channel. So I did a interview on Times Radio, and
nice.
it was like one of them where they were just they invited me on because they wanted to ask me my thoughts on Iran. Okay. So it was in no way like a coordinated thing. And obviously, I've been very vocal about the situation in Iran, but also that type of mindset and mentality spreading to the West, which it
Yeah.
very much has done. Okay. It'd be foolish to deny that. And because I've seen it, okay, I've been here long enough to see it grow, unfortunately. And it's something that to me, I think it's important to exercise that muscle of free speech and be able to criticize certain things, especially when it comes to religious ideologies and things of that nature. But this one particular comment, I took a screenshot of it. I might post it at some point, but honestly, it was phenomenal. I loved it. It said something to the effect of, I think it was a lady, and she was like really giving off some Karen vibes as well. And she said something like, "Is this the same Shayan from Trivex, the practitioners of Eastern death magic? Fully satanic stuff. Of course, we should expect this kind of propaganda for him. He's being paid by several like agencies or whatever to come and spout this propaganda." And I was just like
Yeah.
laughing to myself. I was like, literally, I had an email the day before saying, "Hey, do you want to come and speak on this show about the funerals in Iran?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I went there, talked for 5 minutes, and then this lady's fucking flying off the
Yeah.
handle, man. It's
And then
interesting.
you
It's
and
something
then you
else.
found out that you're secretly a Mossad agent. You're getting funded by Israel and America and all the countries.
I mean, look, I feel like if I had that kind of finances, I'm not sure if this is exactly what I'd be spending my time
That's what I
doing.
was saying. When we did our
Yeah.
interview on my channel, there were it was mostly positive comments, but there were like 2 or 3 unhinged idiots who went off
Yeah.
saying like, "This is just a Mossad spy like spreading propaganda." I'm like, I don't think Israel is funding Trivax. I don't know if they're interested in death metal.
The thing is, man,
um,
it's an interesting one. Like, look, back in the day, if you criticized Islam, you were called Islamophobic, right?
yeah,
And I've noticed a shift, which already is an oxymoron. Like I've said to you before, that word is not real.
yeah,
You never say Christian phobic or whatever, or anything. You never say atheist phobic, but then Islamophobic is all of a sudden a thing. It's a fake
right,
phrase made up by the Muslim Brotherhood. By the way, you
yeah.
can look into its roots. But
The
what's
ones who
interesting?
violently conquered all the countries.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's like what 57 Muslim countries out there. Um,
Yeah,
And when you criticize it, I've noticed a shift in the last, I'm going to say 2, 3 years, where it's shifted from Islamophobic to, oh, you're just being funded by Israel or you're being funded by
yeah,
Mossad, which to me, that's really strange because you would think that the two are kind of opposed. Now, I know people like to kind of go into the weeds about it, but then you find yourself in this really strange situation where people who are like advocating for one thing are then opposed to it in another word, and there's these like things that people would throw around without actually really thinking about the background and the context of it, and as someone coming from Iran, historically, you look at the country and you see the damage that Islam has inflicted on us, not just in the last 47 years, but in the last 700 years.
oh yeah.
Um, and it's like it's my right to fucking criticize that garbage. So yeah, it's a very 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 strange thing to see people going through those mental gymnastics, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's become very stricter too, where I felt like it used to be more open to, I wouldn't say pick on and mock, just like innocent Muslim Islamic people, but in the media you could make Islam jokes and normally would be defended. Like when the Charlie Harpo attack happened, most people were defending, the victims, where I feel like it'd probably be viewed differently now.
That's a great
I
point.
Yeah, I tend to view, usually when someone's really trying to stop you from talking about something, you should probably talk about it. No,
Mm.
depending on, I mean, no matter on who's saying it, whether it's coming from a Christian background or a Muslim background or anything. But I've definitely noticed this weird, strange over fixation in a way on Israel, everything going on with the Zionist side. And what's really interesting to me from my own little rant is that I started looking into the truth about like Epstein and some of the things that Israel has actually done. some of the things that aren't actually great. No country is 100% perfect. But
No.
as I'm noticing that, then people are starting to call out those things more. And then it took off to where like if you trip on the sidewalk, that was because of Israel. If you spill your coffee, it's because of American colonialism. And it
Mm.
became to that point where I'm like, for me personally, when I notice everyone is saying the same thing, I start kind of looking at it, trying to look at it from the outside and being like, where's this coming from? And it started with, I'm fully supportive of criticizing any country of things they actually do. But I have noticed that people tend to pick one side and only call out the country and then ignore a whole lot of shit that they do that are either the same or worse. Where I think I've mentioned to you before, but one reason I wouldn't say lost interest in talking about politics, but kind of maybe posting about it less is because of seeing how just completely blindsided people are on one side or the other, not open to any conversation. I support criticizing Israel and Netanyahu and obviously the IRGC and the Islamic terrorists taking over. And I
Exactly.
feel like
Yep.
when one side, if someone doesn't call out both, I'm just not trusting of them immediately.
Mm.
So it makes it a really weird thing. The whole Iranian situation, the way that Americans reacted after the massacre and the blackout and the invasion and everything was really, really disgusting to me. And I don't even have relations there. I can't imagine how pissed off you probably were.
Well, that's exactly the thing, man. Look, one thing that happens, and you have to kind of zoom out and actually like take a look at the full spectrum. What happens is that to a lot of people, actually thinking about something, critical thinking, where you are able to break down the details and actually observe it and have an opinion of your own, that's a much harder thing than people like to tell themselves.
Oh yeah.
A perfect situation would be where if every human on earth would look at certain situations and individually break it down and come to their own conclusions about it. Which, by the way, I am a huge fan of free speech in that context. But what then
Yeah.
happens is that there's two things here. One, critical thinking is not easy, it's difficult. Okay. Why? Because it means that something that you already believe in is going to be challenged in the process. And people
Yeah.
don't like to be proven wrong about things. They don't like to prove themselves wrong about things either. They just like to say, this is my camp and we're going full speed ahead. What happens in that scenario is that not only there's the challenge and the mental fatigue of critical thinking, there's also the tribal aspect of it. Because
Yeah.
even if you do think differently, it's going to be another thing to express it, because then now you're going to be ousted from the tribe. Then now
Yeah.
you're going to be alienating the groups or the group that you have associated yourself with. And this is a problem all across the board, by the way.
Absolutely.
This is a bipartisan situation that I'm explaining here. And to a lot of people, it's so much easier, instead of accepting the truth of the fact that 40 to 50,000 innocent people were slaughtered over a course of 2 days.
Yeah.
Instead of that, they just say that, oh, it's just the Mossad doing it, or oh, it's just whatever. And like the weird thing with Iran was that as this was happening, I'm seeing arguments from people saying that actually the people who were getting shot on the street were just simply Israeli agents. And then on the
Yeah, I
other
saw
side
some of
of
that.
it, yeah, which is kind of like, you want to consider all the possibilities. But then at the same time, these people were saying that, oh, the people who were doing the killing were also Israeli agents. So it's like, what you're telling me is that in Iran, where the civilians and the authorities are clashing, it's Israeli agents killing other Israeli agents. Is that what you're
Yeah.
trying to tell me? Because that's basically where they landed on. And it made no fucking sense, and yeah, it's crazy to me. And the sad part about it, Wyatt, is the fact that Now, you take out the political aspect of it. When you start to introduce these things into the conversation without genuine critical thought, then you're now dismissing real tragedies that are
Yeah.
occurring as this is happening. And you're essentially dehumanizing all those thousands of people that got slaughtered and killed. And I don't care whether you're left wing, if you're right wing, whatever you believe in, you cannot align yourself with normalization of
Yeah.
killing and murdering innocent people. And I
Yeah.
want to take a very firm stance on that.
Absolutely. And the worst thing about it is a lot of these atrocities, even if they're American, mass shootings or, even situation in Iran, a lot of those victims would have a lot of the same ideologies and beliefs as the people who are now casting them as a Mossad agent, plant, or the enemy or terrorist or whatever. That's how it was with the October 7th attack, that rave. All of those people that were slaughtered at the rave in Israel, weren't they mostly all kind of like left leaning people? Or in a situation like that, they were chanting for peace with Palestine and everything, and then they're
Correct.
slaughtered, and then people are slandering them as spies, not real, they deserved it, they're invaders or whatever. It's that complete the demonization of innocent people, innocent victims, without even like thinking of the circumstances, I think was really disgusting to me. And um I'd been following what was happening in Iran for a little bit just because it was interesting. But the blackout happened and no one's talking about it. And then Trump goes in overnight without telling anyone, to be fair. But everyone suddenly has very strong opinions on it without listening to any of the Iranian people.
Mm.
And that's what happened with the Venezuela situation. For me, I'm like, I think you can criticize how exactly it's done, the method it's being done. But when you are blatantly ignoring and demonizing the people who are from there, who know what's happening, who are telling you their experience, and you go, no, I'm right, you're wrong, fuck you, when their family's been slaughtered and put through this persecution, I can't stand with that. I think that's absolutely disgusting. I
Absolutely.
can't, yeah, I can't understand how people don't want to actually view things from each perspective of how they are. Everybody views things as just in black and white. And I'm like, I think you can criticize the American government and the Israeli government and the IRGC and be in support of the Iranian people and what's going on. I get
Absolutely,
really
man.
frustrated. Yeah, I just get frustrated with how black and white people are, I guess.
It is extremely frustrating because also ultimately what a lot of people do by thinking in such a way, they let themselves down. They essentially make themselves the long-term victim because every time you start pushing really hard in some of these directions, eventually whatever policies that are going to come out of that is going to come and bite you in the ass.
Oh,
And
yeah.
sometimes it might not be in the form of a policy, it might be in the form of like some form of an actual civil unrest. And that is a really dangerous thing. Like, I think we need to be a lot more intentional with what we put out into the world, the kind of thoughts that we project out there. And like I said to you, the number one factor is if you find yourself in a position where in your heart of hearts, you are genuinely giving the thumbs up and the green light that, oh, it's okay for certain people to be killed,
Yeah.
then you really need to reevaluate that situation. Because even for me, look, when Ali Khamenei got rocketed or however way he actually went, um, he he was someone who was responsible for insurmountable amounts of suffering and death and oppression and censorship in Iran
Hmm.
to Iranian people, to people that I grew up with. But even then, even though I know many people that I know in the diaspora were like going out celebrating and like genuinely having tears of joy, I still didn't celebrate that because I don't like seeing shit like that. And I don't, and like him getting killed isn't going to bring anyone back.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying that, oh, I'm against it. I think it was a case of fuck around and find out as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned. But at the same time, in no way, I celebrated that. And I even said to a lot of people were messaging me saying, like, ah, fucking great, they got him. And even to me, I'm like, well, that's just more death. I wish there was a better
Yeah,
way. Okay. And I'm very much kind of in, I wouldn't say in opposition, but I just look at things a lot differently to many other friends and figures who I'm connected to in the Iranian diaspora. Because
yeah,
even, like you look at some of the shit that happens in Gaza, like no one likes to see that happen. That's a
yeah,
fucking terrible thing. The moment you start to justify that, say, oh, it's because of this, well, you can't just like normalize human beings dying. You have to understand these are still people with feelings. That's somebody's son and daughter. That's somebody's child, wife, mother, brother, father, uncle. And I just try and remind myself of that part, instead of being like, yes, we fucking get him. Come on, let's go. No, let's just take a
right.
step back, man. Let's just fucking chill out, and this is the problem that I think there is a deliberate aspect to the dehumanization of the other, which is, by the way, ever so growing over here in the West
Oh God, yeah,
on all sides. And I think that we should just look, whatever you believe in, I respect I might not necessarily agree with you, but I respect your rights to hold that belief. But your
yeah.
belief should never be classed as justification of violence and murder.
I agree. Yeah. That's I think there's something to be said about just the effect that can have on your own soul, whether you believe in that an effect in an afterlife or just how it affects you as a person going forward. When you're cheering for deaths of people, especially innocent people, then can feel corrupted, I guess. That's how I felt seeing people react to Charlie Kirk's assassination. I'm like, I don't um I don't hold anything against people who are like, "Oh, I didn't like him. I didn't watch it. I don't care." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." But the people who are gleefully like freaking the fuck out, I thought that was disgusting. In the same way that I was disgusted by them cheering for the Ayatollah and the massacres that they were committing
Mm.
in Iran. Um, yeah, I don't know. I try to counteract that too because I think part of me would definitely feel that like you shouldn't celebrate, a horrible thing happening to somebody. If it was some really horrible person, part of me would still be like, yeah, fuck you. But I do think it's probably another thing to like actually be like cheering rather than kind of needed to be dealt with situation.
Mm.
Um, but there is definitely just this uh inhumanity spreading throughout the West where like anyone who you see viewed differently at all can be demonized to the point where you're mocking their death, even if they're a completely innocent person, is something that's most people I don't even seem to be aware of is happening. Like they like to talk about it in the media whenever something does happen, they'd be like, "Oh, this is bad," and then they go right back to doing it immediately.
Mm. Well,
um,
when you turn it into a situation where what matters most to you is being right rather than just the truth, or more importantly than being right, scoring points for your team and for your tribe
yeah,
that you've associated yourself with. When it becomes about point scoring, it's a lot easier to dehumanize people. And honestly, I
right.
think this has been placed in humanity deliberately. This is psychological planning to turn us against each other.
Hmm.
And because if you go on the streets and if you talk to people, like for me, if I speak to a Muslim person, I am fundamentally against many of the things to do with that religion. I am historically against that religion and its position in humanity. But I can bet you that I'm still going to find many things in common with the
Absolutely.
said person who's even following that religion that I'm opposed to, because they're still human at the end of the day. And hopefully, I mean, some people are just out of their minds, regardless of
Yeah.
what they believe in. That's a different story. But if they're a rational person, generally speaking, they're probably interested in mostly the same things as you and I, which is that
Oh
you want
yeah.
to live a good life, you want to look after your family, you want to have a good job, you want to earn a living, you want to have fun, you want to have meaning, you want to have all these things in your life. And those are common grounds. Doesn't matter who you meet, you're going to have those common grounds already. And it's not going to be that hard to form a connection. And we shouldn't let our associations with a certain tribe get in the way of that human connection, because that's the purest thing as far as I'm concerned.
I completely agree. Like, I really respect people who will openly say, like, I don't agree with you on everything you say, or I don't agree with you on this point, but I either, respect you for what you say or how you present it, or you're entertaining or whatever. I totally appreciate comments like that. And that's what I think. I kind of grew up watching debates. Like, I remember watching Penn and Teller's Bullshit was a show that I used to watch, where they would go in and break down kind of cultural myths and things. Um, and I would watch people like, what was it, Christopher Hitchens and some of these other like debaters back when that was a popular thing. I love seeing, a staunch atheist and then like a Catholic bishop having a respectful debate. Or I started getting into Joe Rogan's podcast when I see him like respectfully talking to people that were either really left or really right, and actually breaking down as a normal human.
Yeah.
That was that's what I think is most important. And that's why I think just tribalism can be such a bad thing when it's to that extent, where I don't see why. I think you can have pride in like your tribe and your group of people, but that doesn't mean you have to like demonize or try to eliminate the other one. I think there can be interaction and learning from each other rather than just trying to slaughter anyone who disagrees with you. But I guess that's kind of the history of humanity.
As many of you already know this, I go by the nickname That Mental Coach. The reason for that is exactly because I work full-time as an online fitness coach as well as a personal trainer where I help people attain their fitness goals. Having been someone who was once extremely out of shape and borderline obese, I was able to lose over 40 kilos and basically eat that weight off. And now it is my job to help others achieve the same thing. And I have had many clients from all across the world, all the way from US to Australia to Germany to Poland to the UK, where I'm currently based, where we work together. You don't have to be in the UK to work with me. You can be anywhere in the world as long as you've got specific fitness goals that you want to achieve and you've got access to training equipment, then we can work together. If this is something that interests you, you can use the link on the Trial by Fire website, and you can use the contact link to contact me, and then I will be in touch with you. Otherwise, you can just send me a DM on any of my social medias. You can use my personal Instagram, That Metal Coach, or you can even send me a message on the Iblis Manifestations Instagram, and we'll see how I can help you. Anyway, with that said, hope you enjoy the rest of the episode, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Yeah. And this is why I always lean so heavily into my own background, especially from a historical standpoint of the ancient Iranian religion of Zoroastrianism, because Zoroastrianism essentially creates this sort of frame of understanding the world and the universe, that the forces of light and evil are in this continuum of struggle against one another. And I think that when you understand it as a part of the blueprint of life, you just look at everything a lot more differently, and you kind of understand that certain things are meant to be. Now, which side of that do I kind of want to feed into? And I think that's a really important realization to have. So, obviously, with both of us having the sort of following that we have, obviously mainly in the metal scene, how do you think that this mindset kind of has translated to metal and the metal scene as a whole?
Oh man, now I'm gonna get a bunch of hate comments.
Let's go.
I am. I've definitely been surprised by how kind of closed-minded and echo chamber proudly a lot of people in metal and underground scenes can be. I do think that tends to come a lot more from the younger, more, let's say, TikTok generation, rather than like old heads who grew up in the like 70s and 80s and stuff like that. Maybe some of them, but for me, it's just a community, a art form, a brotherhood that prides itself so much on thinking independently and going against the grain and standing true to yourself. I'm often disappointed by how they just go into groupthink and will be afraid to call someone out or say something that's obviously fucking true. Um, some things I feel like they're quite behind on. Like some of the things I get complaints about in my videos when I just talk about, I make a joke about a current day cultural, like politically thing, and people will throw out like rumors or shit from 10 years ago that were proven not true, that are obviously not true, and they're still going on about this. Um, a while ago, there was this local festival in Florida had booked a bunch of metalcore bands to play, but as a guest, not going to be on stage, but someone just there in the crowd was going to be Kyle Rittenhouse. And when that came out, all of the metal media slandered them as this like alt-right Nazi festival that tricked these bands into playing this like racist rally. And none of them like would talk to the promoter and see like what the hell is actually going on, or just come at it from a normal, not radical point of view. So I interviewed that promoter, just kind of like, hey, I just want to see your perspective, like, what's going on? And some of the comments I got from that were like crazy shit, like, I can't believe you're supporting like racism and white supremacy. I'm like, at no point was race mentioned anywhere in this like 2 hour interview or the situation we're talking about. So when it comes to stuff like that, it's disappointing to me where seeing people who pride themselves so much on being independent being so obviously into groupthink and not challenging themselves. I think that's the main thing, is the disappointment and people not challenging themselves. That whole thought of like, if you're metal, you have to be left or woke or, whatever. Um,
Yeah, it's like you're a blonde guy with black nail varnish and play in a German thrash metal band. That's very fucking original.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just it's interesting how people don't question their own stereotypes and their own beliefs and where they come from and everything. Like you were saying, it's scary for people to challenge themselves. I know it used to be for me as well. I've kind of lucky enough, I guess, to break out of that, but I've kind of gotten to the point where, like I said, when I see most people saying the same thing, I'm automatically like, what's going on in the background? Like, why are people doing that? Um, yeah, but one of the main compliments I get when I meet people in person at festivals and shows and stuff is they really appreciate how I don't censor myself, how I will say truths about the industry and about things, about not acting sensitive and bowing down to a mob in the comments or anything. It's something that's probably the number one compliment I get from people, are like, thank you for not, you know, being woke or being censored and just saying things for how they actually are. So it shows that the like core metal world community who grew up, like in the 90s wildness and everything, tend to not be this, I need to write a PR statement to apologize for this comment I made. But there's um this like shadow took over the metal world where it automatically became, if you say anything that goes against that grain, you're going to get slandered in comments and attacked by fans, and usually more managers and people tend to not want that type of thing. But I've heard from plenty of bigger bands too who aren't into the whole online outrage culture, but maybe they're people within their careers say it's not a good idea to be as uncensored or unapologetic with your opinions now. It's an interesting thing. Do you have any like views on that type of subject? Of how is it in the UK, especially?
Oh, the UK's cooked, man. Fucking hell. It's one of those things. I think that, to me, the thing that drew me towards metal to begin with was the fact that it stood for individuality, or it stands
Yeah,
for individuality. It still does to me, how I view this music. An individuality means that you carve your own path in life. Okay. Now, sometimes in that path that you carve and create for yourself through a journey of liberation and finding your own voice, finding your own grounding in life, you will find yourself aligned with other people, not because you started together. They might come from a completely different strain of thought, completely different background, and they still might presently believe in different things than you. But somehow your paths will align just
Yeah.
towards that individuation of microcosm process. And that's respectful to me. That's kind of when you make genuine connections with people. That's when you have apples and oranges who can actually at least respect each other, because hey, look, I'm into this stuff, I can see you're into that too, and let's celebrate that part that we have in common. the
I
problem
agree.
the problem now is the fact that you kind of, I don't know, there's this faceless element to the social psychology of metal that we're experiencing, which is a receipt of the broader world as a whole. And that I have a big problem with, because then that's when things kind of veer much more towards communism.
Yeah.
And by the way, I mean communist ideology. This is not something that's exclusive to the left, by the way, because even
Yeah.
a lot of the people on the right end up going down a similar path without realizing it.
Yeah.
So what that means is that you're this like faceless agent for a cause that you didn't choose, but it picked you.
Hmm.
And now all of your wiring has to benefit that one single ideology. And that ideology can be anything, by the way. Um,
Oh yeah.
and I think that that is the part that I have the most amount of issue with. I like the world, I like people to be colorful, to have their own face, to wear their own face instead of a mask of something else that was handed down to them from scrolling on social media. And for people to just be themselves, like to me, being a metalhead, that's what it's all about. It's about being free. It's about being able to think for yourself and listening to music that challenges most listeners. And maybe it still challenges me to an extent to this day, but I like it because it makes me think. That's what I tap into this music. And I hope that my own music obviously have similar effects on other people. Which I know it does, of course, which is an honor. But at the same time, that's what I like about people. I like to be like, okay, well, you think that. Why do you think that? Instead of
Right.
saying, I'm not going to speak to you now because you think that. That's never been how I've approached this. And you know what? Interestingly enough, since we're talking about this, when you and I did our first discussion together, I had someone from the music industry send me a message saying, oh, this Wyatt guy that you have spoken to, he said this about so and so. He is so like against our values and he's doing this and that. And all I replied with was, hey man, thanks for the message. Did you watch the interview? Silence. No
Yeah, of
response.
course.
And to me, like, I hate that. I really, really hate that way of thinking. Okay. And I think that you need to be able to at least have discourse with people, and a lot of the people that I have on the podcast or I go on their channel to speak to, I speak to them because I'm interested to speak to them.
Yeah.
Because, hey, let's have a great conversation. Like, fuck whether we agree on everything or not. And by the way, if you genuinely in your group of friends agree with all of your friends, you are all fucking psychotic. That
Yeah,
is
there's
not
something wrong.
normal. That is not, there's something wrong. That's not normal. So
Yes.
yeah, I think it's
I
respecting that differentiation in thought and opinion, which I would love to see more of.
Yeah, absolutely. I learned a while ago that with pretty much everyone, there can be things that I agree with and things that I don't agree with. I'm sure like every single person I consider a friend believes something I don't, whether no matter what it is. It doesn't mean that like they don't perfectly align. I have to cut them off. Especially coming from the metal world is an interesting one where people apparently there's a written list of rules somewhere and you have to be these things or you're not allowed to be metal anymore.
Yeah.
um yeah, it's the these people, especially who say those things, tend to be the same people who claim to be afraid of like fascism or authoritarian government is going to come in and take all their rights away. And it's like they're afraid of censorship by a gun barrel, but then they don't even think of how they just embrace their own self-censorship and then spread that and indoctrinate others. What amazes me so much about metal and underground when it comes to this like cultural perspective is how they don't seem to have any thought of a wolf in sheep's clothing. They seem to think that like Christian white male is bad and that's the only bad thing. So anything they don't like is good and is welcome with us in open arms without thinking at all about bad actors in the midst. That's one thing where surprises me. But it's not just metal. I mean, there's so many other underground and niche like genres that do the same type of thing.
To your point there, you made this really great video about the Banana Man situation that that happened at this gig. Man, you know where you really hit the nail on the head with that one. And I thought it was, the irony was just insane, was the lyrics to the song that band were playing as they just ordered the beating of this one guy in a banana costume. Now, look, whatever your opinion about like someone showing up to a gig in like a banana costume or whatever, to be honest with you, the situation actually, like, it really made me think about stuff like that, stuff that maybe I see at our shows with Trivex, it really made me reevaluate that situation. But it was like the hypocrisy of saying one thing in a song, and then just before you perform that song, which is criticizing a certain type of actions, you proceed to partake in exactly those certain types of actions, which I thought
exactly.
Insane hypocrisy.
I figured there had to be something there. That's why I wanted to look up the song they were playing. And yeah, their lyrics are about police beating an innocent man while they ordered an innocent person be attacked by their crowd. A while ago I realized that I tend to hyper focus on hypocrisy and irony. So whenever I just see that, I tend to like really want to call that out and joke about it. And that situation was retarded. So throw another one in the jar there.
That's number 3. Look, I think that was a good one. By the way, if anyone's not checked that out, I do recommend them to watch that video once we're finished with the conversation. But I think it's one of those things. I think it's people do the worst shit imaginable if they think that they're right, which no one thinks they're wrong whilst they're putting a certain amount of energy behind something that they're trying to do. That's why they're doing it in the first place. That's why they're choosing to pull the trigger. And I think self-awareness and also like being at least somewhat more accepting of the fact that people have different views or like want to do a different thing, because there was no rule, hey, don't wear this fucking thing. If there's a rule, then you either challenge the rule as a participant or you abide by it as a community. And if as someone who's in that group but you don't agree with that rule, you remove yourself from the group or at least challenge the rule, but do it in like a healthy way. Like it's like the same situation with like a lot of people say, oh, all these girls that got killed in Iran for not wearing proper hijab, well, that is the rule, so they got what they deserved. That's a situation where it's the rule that's fucking outrageous and completely out of date with today's world. And on the other side of that, you got someone like me. I left that group because I no longer wanted to be associated with that rule and I didn't want to follow it, and if I had stayed there longer, I probably would have been in some fucking hot water, to put it extremely mildly. And I think that this is what a lot of these people, I mean, look, I sometimes feel like there's no talking sense to any of them, but I think it's still important to have the conversation regardless. Because
that's what I always struggle between, man. It's always half of me is like, you need to be open to talking to people and hearing their perspective and helping them change their perspective, and the other half of me is like, I don't want to hear about these fucking retards, they're annoying, I don't want to talk to them. And it's always a balance between the two.
No, listen, man, exactly, this is it, and this is my thing with metal. You know, like, look, people always throw around the word poser. To me, a true poser is someone who hides their own identity to fit in with a crowd. So
Yeah.
if you're like listening to specific bands dressing up a specific way to fit in with the crowd, you are the definition of a poser. You
Yeah.
are the fucking poser. Don't
You're
let's not
posing,
bullshit.
literally.
Yeah, let's not fucking bullshit ourselves here, man. You know, like fair enough. You bought a fucking this, you know, like secondhand destruction shirt from eBay that's all vintage and whatever, and wait, like white sneakers like the 80s
Yeah.
and have long hair and haven't showered for about 3 weeks just to fit in a certain subgenre. And you call other people poser. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
you are the biggest fucking poser because you have no personality of your own. Fuck you.
Yeah. Your entire personality and well-being is based upon how your peers perceive you. Like that's
Yeah.
you're entirely based yourself on posing for them. It's yeah, people in general, not just metal, but people in the world need to just be more open to challenging themselves, realizing how they could be wrong. A long held belief they grew up with could be completely wrong if they just take a second to actually step back and look at it. It's that fear of challenging yourself, I think, is just a huge problem overall in the world. Not the only problem in the world, but it's a big one right now.
It's one of the biggest ones, especially with social media rising, you know, and I think rising, it's encapsulating everything in it, you
Yeah.
know, never mind rising. You know, and in but coming back to the context in metal, that's one of the reasons why with Trivex, I mean, we just finished recording our next album. And with this one, I very deliberately what I try to be as authentic as possible with the lyrics. And I specifically talk about in a genre such as like extreme metal, where it's constantly focused on nihilism and oh, everything is fucked, oh, fuck the world, this and that, which I certainly
Yeah.
used to be very much a large participant of that conceptually and psychologically. I purposely moved to a mind frame of look, I'm all about overcoming challenges. I'm all about self betterment. I'm all about discipline and earning your own freedom on this planet. And these lyrics may not necessarily sit well with someone who likes to fucking wake up and jerk off to fucking OnlyFans and then wear their fucking stupid leather jacket to a show, you know, and then like start threatening people that they've never met. To me, this is all about like that fucking individuation process that I mentioned to you, you know, and I don't care if someone might read that and think, well, this is not usually the kind of stuff we talk about in metal. I don't give a fuck what kind of usual stuff you talk about metal. This is my
Yeah.
band, my music. I'm gonna have my own words to say about it, you know. And honestly, it's been a fucking liberating process, and yeah, I can't wait to share it with everyone.
I can't wait to hear that. That sounds fucking awesome. Right up my alley. What kind of shit is that? Where it's like, oh, this is something we don't usually talk about in metal. Like, oh, so to play metal, you have to talk about like zombies and gore and Satan and the
Yeah,
typically
exactly.
approved of subjects. Like, fuck that.
Yeah.
I do similar with my band and our lyrics. I tend to try to write more of a deeper, more kind of personal darkness from a more mental level, kind of in the same vein of like kind of at the gates lyrics ish.
Mm.
I like plenty of bands who are like kill the zombie with the chainsaw, whatever. But I do feel like, especially somewhat lately, there's bands have been kind of lacking in really challenging your own like humanity and struggle. And like you said, there's a lot of kind of embracing and parading one's trauma around without actually like dealing with it or working to overcome it, but just using it as a flag
Mm.
to say everything sucks. This is why, so fuck it. Where I agree with you, where I think there should be a lot more challenge for people to better themselves and overcome these situations. Because I used to be like that too. I used to be
Yeah.
very depressed, not knowing what I wanted to do, waking up and thinking fuck the world. And so I try to really remember how toxic and dark it was to be in that mindset while being out of it now and trying to kind of challenge people to question their own mental situation in ways that maybe they largely aren't in a society now where you're largely usually just patted on the back and told like, no, everything else is wrong. You're fine. Don't worry about it. I think there should be a lot more breaking down oneself in order to build up and overcome adversity.
Bro, that's phenomenal. It's the saying that the seeds of life must always first be planted in darkness. And
Yeah.
and I think that we very much have that in common, man. That was exactly the same as me as well, you know, being totally self-destructive, thinking that every single thing that happened was a fault of the world,
Yeah.
embodying this victim mindset without realizing that I did it.
Yeah.
And
Same.
and just like constant projection at everything. Oh, everything's fucked, the world is fucked, humanity's fucked. Not realizing that all I was doing was taking whatever was inside of me and just like spraying it on everything else and just blaming
Yeah.
everyone else instead of just owning my own shit.
Yeah. You're just taking your own poison and throwing it at everyone you saw rather than actually addressing it. And that was the same for me. It took me a long time until I realized that's what I was doing unintentionally because I never thought to myself, like, I want to be a victim, everything. But
Yeah.
your brain just is kind of tricked into that in a
It's
way.
like that Megua album cover for Exercises in Futility, where it's the blind man looking like he's trying to pass on his blindness to others.
Yeah. 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 That's pretty much exactly how it is without even realizing it. It's your depression can tell you that, oh, you're just being real or logical about, or you're just looking for something as how it actually is when you're actually just being full of criticism, not only for everything, but for yourself. Especially coming from a genre that has bands like Manowar and all this shit, it should be more encouraged to try to be better versions of yourself, no matter what that is. I'm sure you agree that doesn't mean someone has to agree with us on every single opinion, but it means
Mm.
challenging yourself to grow to be the best that you can.
Yeah, exactly. But the very interesting part about that, Wyatt, is the fact that once you challenge yourself to grow, your opinions do actually evolve. I don't want to say
Yeah.
change, but they evolve. It's an important distinction to make there.
Yeah, they absolutely do. I totally agree with that. I realized how much I was just being a bitch rather than actually taking accountability for myself.
Bro, same here. I remember there was a fucking time. I mean, obviously, like everyone knows I'm a fitness coach and this is what I do. And I lost like 90 pounds and kept it off. And people know my story when it comes to that. But the thing they don't see is that wasn't just like a physical transformation. This was like 95% mental. And it all
Yeah.
came, it came, that was the source of it. Like I remember once upon a time when, where I used to live in Sheffield, we were very close to woodlands. So it was this beautiful green area just outside by where we were. And yes, granted, I had a lot on my mind at the time, but it was no excuse because I would have people close to me. This is when I used to be super overweight. I think I was like 260 pounds or so, something like that. And
Mm.
people would say to me like, "Hey, you should really go out for a walk because I thought you said to me the other week that you're gonna go for a walk and enjoy some fresh air and get some exercise." And you know the kind of shit I would say, "Don't you know how I feel? Don't you know how depressed and anxious I am?" Bro, I literally said, I actually uttered these words, which I'm disgusted by it in hindsight. But also, there's
Mhm.
another part of me that's fucking proud of the fact that I grew out of that shit. I grew out
Yeah.
of that crap. It's like you turn yourself into like a fucking black hole that just like sucks everything around it into it. And so yeah, why be a black hole when you can be a fucking star? That's my approach to
Yeah.
life, man.
Yeah, it's a wicked like spiral that you catch yourself in. Like you feel like shit because you're not doing anything, but you don't do anything because you feel like shit, and it just reinforces the shittiness. I tend like not on such a massive depressive level, but on just a normal day, I can find myself like I've been sitting around doing computer stuff for a while, and I'll feel like kind of shitty, and then I'll realize I haven't gotten up in a bit, and then as soon as I get up and like go on a walk or do something, then I suddenly feel better right away. Um,
It's
but
amazing how that works, man. It's the best antidepressant. Honestly, exercise is literally the best antidepressant there is. And honestly, a lot of that anxiety and depression, I've had a lot of chats with people about this, and also people who are like very much studying this. And I, of course, have my own case study of it through the many clients I've helped from basically 3 continents at this point. And the thing is that the conclusion I draw from this is that we as human beings evolved to have to fight and survive. And we were tormented by nature. Our ancestors had to live through hell just to see another day, whether it was with disease or predators or weather conditions, and the
Yeah.
lack of comfort, the lack of food, the lack of care, all of these things. And generally speaking, you had to move, you had to be fit in order to survive. If you were a member of a tribe and you had like a broken leg or could no longer move, you were going to get left behind. You were going to be, you know, like when you watch wildlife videos and whatever, and then it's like it's always the slowest that gets eaten by the predators.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think there's a big correlation between lack of movement and anxiety as a result of that internal wiring. Because if you're not moving around, if you're not moving your body, if you're not exercising, if you're not fit, deep down, your body knows that if you were chased by a predator, you would be a prey. And I think that because you know you don't have a fighting chance deep inside. Okay, now you might say that, well, I live in an apartment block. I don't get chased by predators. Yes, but it's not that long ago when we were. And
Yeah.
your internal wiring still thinks the same. And it's crazy how much of that anxiety and depression goes away simply just by taking ownership of your physical health, man.
Absolutely. It's that's interesting. I didn't think about it in that same type of way, but that might correlate to the fight or flight instinct that people have. More people might go into, you know, just panicking and fear not moving because of the sedated lifestyle and not being used to any kind of threat or change of environment happening that makes them need to get up and move. I definitely think there's an instinctual thing of, you know, humans were meant to move and be hunters and gatherers. So if you're spending all day sitting on your couch, sitting in your car, sitting in an office, there's something just deep down inside you that feels the need to move and get out. It might not be crazy. You don't have to become a marathon runner, but even just a simple, like if I do a 20-minute workout, I feel so much better than I do if I make an excuse to not do it and keep sitting around. It's these really minor things that have kind of been bred out of the natural human. I think is technology and social media has that same thing where it's not just your physical body, but your mental state too changes if you're only sedated, staring at screens all day. Uh, it's no surprise. I think we've seen a rise in anxiety, ADHD, and all these disorders when everything has become scroll in 3 seconds. As soon as you lose interest and don't actually pay attention. Funny enough, I started reading regularly. I try to read a chapter every day in the morning as soon as I wake up of whatever book I'm on. I basically did that to spite how stupid people are and how their attention spans can't hold on anymore. Like most people can't even read anymore, let alone get through a book in a year. So if I start each day just reading a chapter of a book and really visualizing it and being there, I feel like I started one step ahead than a lot of other people just because of that. That would be an interesting question for you, actually. When you started your physical journey to change, did any part of you feel like you were forcing yourself to get through it until you started to enjoy it? Or did you do it because of you were hating yourself or you just wanted to get better?
I'll have to refer to the very first time I actually went to the gym, which was when I had already lost a tiny bit of weight just from walking around and actually realizing, because it dawned on me that, oh shit, I actually need to do something about this, because I had a myriad of health problems, constant migraines. I was actually limping. I was that overweight. Like such high cholesterol that even though I was in my 20s, the doctor put me on fucking statins and
Damn.
all kinds of shit. Yeah, it was really bad. Like I cannot stress how bad that was. and not being able to think or focus or do anything. It was just a broken, sad half quarter life even. And I kind of got the realization that, you know what, I think I need to do something about this. And actually, that came from someone close to me pointing it out, for which at first I found really upsetting and extremely hurtful. It's like, you know, I sent you a photo of myself, you know, just to let you know that we're thinking of you. And the first thing you have to say to me, hey, I'm worried about your health. You're looking really overweight. Okay. But then I was like, well, maybe they have a point. And they sure as hell absolutely had a point.
Yeah.
So I kind of started with little bits, man. I started just by walking around a little bit, not binge eating and comfort eating as much, and lost a little bit, just walking around, no exercise, but, you know, just the little things. Not much weight, just a bit. And then I signed up to the gym about 5 or 6 months after that. Don't know why I waited for so long, you know, but it's like hard when you realize that, oh, your whole life you've kind of been taking the wrong approach.
Yeah.
It's really hard to kind of accept that sometimes. And obviously now it's my job to help people who are on that same trajectory kind of not only get faster results, but be directed through it, because I've exactly been there. I know what it's like,
Yeah.
whatever their goal is. And I remember the first day I went to the gym, I saw the weight section and I thought, hell no, I'm not even going near that. That's for like all the Instagram posers and influencers. I'm not even touching that.
Yeah.
But whilst I was saying that to myself, deep down, I was just simply intimidated by it. Okay, like let's face it, that was the fact. Anyway, I went on one of the bikes and I was on there for about 30 minutes. By about minute 2, I already wanted to stop, but I just thought, oh no, man, just like let's keep pushing. Come on, you got this. Let's go. Let's go. This is the start of a new journey, this and that. And afterwards, I went and lied back down on the bench in the locker room, and I had this really severe realization of, holy fuck, I'm so out of shape, which it hurt me because I felt like as if the entire world had passed me by and I was all the way back here and everyone was going on about their lives, enjoying themselves, getting fitter, getting healthier, getting better, doing whatever with business or work. And I was all the way back here at rock bottom. And the saddest and the most hurtful part about it was that I realized I had done that to myself. I didn't have anyone to blame. I couldn't turn around and point the finger and say, well, oh, it was because of the fact that I was born in Iran. I couldn't turn around and say like, oh, my family let me down. No, they didn't. I couldn't turn around and say, oh, it's that such and such bad friend. I couldn't do that. No, I had to take responsibility and accept the fact that I had done that to myself. And the only person who was going to be able to fix that was myself. So that's exactly what I did, man. 90 pounds later, after I actually realized that, okay, weight loss is actually a lot more sustainable through weight lifting, not endless cardio, and not by starving yourself. Once I learned about the science of nutrition and got a little bit of help along the way, which I recommend everyone to do if what I'm saying resonates with you. And now I actually help other people do exactly what I did, you know, but that was the start of it, man.
And then other people would come in with the mindset that you were at, feeling like they're so far behind and viewing you as someone who's like miles ahead and viewing themselves in that same like path. Or the young grasshopper meeting the master.
Yeah, because look, someone who doesn't know me, they might look at my social media and be like, oh, this guy is into metal, I think. And he also lifts weights and is like into bodybuilding or whatever. Cool story, bro. What they don't realize, it's what's behind every single rep that that I've done in that time, you know. And look, I get it, you know. Like I used to associate gym culture and exercise with posers and people who were just there for their egos, not
Which there are
realizing
some.
Yeah, oh look, there sure is some, but I think that at least in the context of metal, we can trust ourselves that we have at least somewhat of a deeper understanding of breaking down reality. We'd like to be a bit more intuitive. We have higher emotional intelligence. I like to think that we do anyway,
Yeah,
just from a personal perspective relating to it. And I think that we can do better. We can do better. We can carve our own world. It doesn't matter like who thinks what. We build our own path. We build our own lives.
exactly. That's kind of what drew me to metal, was that whole, um, that sense of, you're being unapologetically yourself, and no matter what that may look like, whether to people who enjoy wearing black t-shirts or not. Um, and then it's funny, we were talking about wrestling earlier. I feel like that can also relate in to working out. All of those things in a way can kind of help people embrace more of who they are. Wrestling, I know, is more of a, can be a show, but there's a lot of the personalities and like charisma where that does translate to people and help inspire them to find more courage for themselves.
Mm.
Um, I've always been one to learn to take lessons away from things if they're there. Like from art, I tend to not enjoy art if it's just mindless slop of nothing. I try to look into like, what was the message here? What was the point or the story? Um,
And then he's probably being sold for fucking $4 million or something, some stupid
exactly.
shit
Yeah.
like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And then there's
Yeah.
going to be just a committee of people who are going to dumb it down and make it retarded.
Yeah. It's a banana
uh,
taped to a fucking wall.
exactly. Yeah. uh, I don't know if you're familiar with the Star Wars expanded universe, the books of the true story back when there was only 3 fucking movies.
Please tell me about it.
Well, I only bring that up because the main villain in it is this character named Grand Admiral Thrawn, and the reason that everyone respects him and fears him, he does not have any magic superpowers. He's just aware and paying attention to things where there's times where they're being attacked and all his men are freaking out, and he's looking at a painting, just looking at it, and then he'll take away details and notice things about, like, he's really interested in certain cultures and how they act, whether it was something he agreed with or not. He could still find a beauty in, something they held deep, and that really was like one of the main fictional characters that really stuck with me, and I kind of try to remember to have that mindset of noticing the details of things that make them important, whether it's a story, an art form, or a person and what they've gone through and the mental state. Um, I think it's, yeah, good to just try to look at things on a deeper level.
That would probably be me. Like you could come up to me and be like, Shayan, the fucking grid's gone down and all the food's gonna go off in like 12 hours. And I'd be like, did you know that on Danzig's Darling Do You Wear the Mark, the guitar starts panning left and right in the middle section, and that was a really cool trick. So
You're like, and that's how we fix the refrigerator. But yeah, that's exactly what they do too. Like, that's like when this thing happened, here's an idea to fix it.
Yeah. That's it, man. Well, absolutely. Look, I think that this is one of those things. I think people can take a few pages out of this book, hopefully, and understand. Look, no matter who you are, no matter where you are in life, no matter how much you've already done, how much you haven't done, you can always do better, and you can always do more. And this is the thing I try and remind myself. And I think this is something that everyone could live by, because look, the moment you stop growing, you start dying. There's no other way. This is the rule of life. I didn't write it, but this is how it is. So it's important just to remind ourselves, look, we're not perfect, but let's strive to at least achieve some form of perfection. Even if it never happens, you want to get as close to it as possible, and I approach art in the same way. It's the idea that you got to reach for the stars just to even reach the top of the mountain.
Exactly. Yeah. And even if you don't make it to the very top, you still got way higher than you would have if you didn't even try.
Exactly. Absolutely.
When I was younger and dealing with depression and everything, I definitely was of the mindset that I had to get to a certain point. And once I got to that point, then everything would be perfect and there'd be no problems and I'd be happy. And real happiness came when I realized that, like, that point doesn't exist. Life is a series of growing and evolving and changing. This, I mean, unless you're in a real shit situation, it's usually not, I need this one thing and then everything will be perfect. Once you realize that it's how you learn and how you go up those steps rather than just staring at the destination, that's really what makes life so meaningful and where you really learn the lessons, I think.
For sure, man. And look, things get so much more interesting. You know, like I've had, and look, I'm sure yourself, myself, everyone who's listening at some point has had the opportunity to give up. Okay.
Yeah.
Giving up is an option that consistently presents itself over time. And what I'd like to put out there is that, you know, in life, you've got two sets of people. You don't have winners and losers. You've got participants, and you have people who basically stopped playing.
Yeah.
Now, in whatever format that may be. And I'm, of course, approaching this from a metaphorical aspect, but I think you understand what I'm referring to. And I think that, you know, for me, and I'm sure, like I said, for a lot of people who are listening, like there's been many times where you could have given up, but you didn't. And look at the amazing things that came after that specific moment where you chose not to give up.
Yeah, absolutely. At a time when you probably convince yourself like there's nothing going forward, there's nothing after this point, you need to stop and look back on how much good shit happened ever since that. That would have never happened if you did truly give up that early on. Um, it's, yeah, I don't know what it is. I guess for some people, for me as well, no matter how depressed and dark I got on the inside at times, I feel like there was always something that wanted to reach a better point rather than fully like I quit, fuck everything. It's kind of like when Sam and Frodo were in Mordor and Sam sees the one star shining above the clouds. It's kind of like, I guess some people still have that like little shining spark in them no matter how dark they get, and it's working your way through that where really beautiful, amazing things can happen. Like, yeah, my life has only gotten better ever since I started challenging myself, and I recommend everyone do it.
Man, I think that's a phenomenal point to kind of bring this to an end, because that's the one, man. That is the one. I love it.
Be more like Sam is the
Yes. Wow. Wyatt, my man, this has been such a fucking great chat with you. Thoroughly
yeah.
enjoyed it, man. And the time has absolutely flown by. Thank you so much for the great chat, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. I'm down to chat anytime.
As we kind of
8 comments.
Yeah. Bro, if you want to hate on this, like be my guest, you know, that's going to be a reflection of you, I'm afraid. As we kind of wrap this up, man, any last minute plugs, anything you want to share with people, whether it's with your band or the channel, anything else you got coming up?
Yeah, definitely check out the channel, Why It's Metal. If you're unfamiliar with it, I tend to make jokes and talk shit about metal things and talk some truths. Check out my band, Dark Insanity. We just released a new single called Technological Terror. It's on Spotify, Bandcamp. It's on my YouTube, all of the socials. We try to make it so you can find it. Our next show is later this month. We're playing the Tolminator Festival in Slovenia. So if anyone's going to that, wants to party on the beach with us, we'll be performing there on the DIY stage.
Have you performed in Europe previously?
We did perform at the Tolminator Festival 2 years ago. That was the first time ever. And that was fucking nuts. We played like there on the stage on the beach. You could see people floating down the river while we were performing. It was awesome. So we're gonna do that again if anyone wants to come out to Tolminator. And besides that, yeah, check out my socials for content about me and Rocket fucking around. And that's it pretty much.
There we go. That's awesome. Look, that sounds fun. Thank you so much again for a great chat. And to everyone who's listened to this one, go ahead over to Wyatt's Metal channel and subscribe if you haven't already. And check out Wyatt's band Dark Insanity. And thank you so fucking much once again for being with us for what I thought was a great episode. So hope you guys enjoyed this one as much as we did. And we'll see you on the next episode of Iblis Manifestations.
Hell yeah.
Welcome to Iblis Manifestations.